One is a cancer. The other, called amyloidosis. You get these deposits in your heart, protein deposits, called amyloids. And what it causes, the walls of my heart become very thick. Makes it very difficult to breathe and so forth. On occasion, you might notice I may still get out of breath.
Okay.
But that's no worries. That's just kind of the norm today.
Okay. So
I had these two terminal diseases I was diagnosed with in 2012. Now, if you take the title of my book, Failure is Not an Option, when I was in SWAT, there were three things I always expected of the men. I served as a operator, team leader, and commander. And when I was a commander, there's three things I always asked them. You never complain, you never quit, and the mission comes first. And as it relates
let's slow that. Can we just slow that? Are you cool with me every once in a while interrupting you to slow it down? Because that's like a screenshot moment. I suspect you're going to have a few of them, and there's one, okay, which I already wrote them down because I anticipated that because you make it abundantly clear in here and in the conversation that we first had. I took some notes. So never quit, never complain, and the mission comes first. You know, I could just run with that as a mental toughness coach. I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty much it.
What's very important is, as it relates to the mission, failure is not an option.
Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey everybody, welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I am your host, Chris Doris, and if by chance you are not getting notified of all the new episodes of Tough Talks, and if you're not getting notified, if you're not getting my blog posts, which come out every Tuesday, and if you're not getting my daily dose messages, which of course come out daily, theoretically it's 6 a.m. your time, mental toughness tips in 30 seconds or less. If you're not getting that stuff, then let's ameliorate that situation, shall we? Simply by going to ChristopherDoris.com/lists, L-I-S-T-S. ChristopherDoris.com/lists. Name, email, click. Miracles. All right, so I'm pretty damn pumped about our guest today, former SWAT commander Jeff Nyce. We have not had any SWAT commanders on Tough Talks yet. I'm super pumped to visit with him. I've only spent a few minutes with Jeff in preparation for this, and let me read you his brief bio. So Jeff Nyce is former member of the Montgomery County, Maryland Department of Police, Special Weapons and Tactics Team, SWAT. In his many years in SWAT, he participated in approximately 4,500 tactical operations. 4,500 tactical ops, including the takedown of the DC snipers, the Discovery headquarters, that's the Discovery Channel, the Discovery headquarters suicide bomber hostage rescue incident, and the capture of a violent group of serial bank robbers featured on America's Most Wanted. So there's some high-profile ops here. So he served as an operator, team leader, and then ultimately commander. 30 years in SWAT, longest in the history of the team. At the height of his career, he was struck down by 2 diseases which were deemed terminal at the time, that's an interesting, it's a relevant caveat, deemed terminal at the time. We'll get into that. Despite coding during a stem cell transplant in 2013 and suffering a stroke in 2015, he has persevered. 8 years post-diagnosis, he is in remission, and by all medical accounts, has defied the odds. This guy has more stories than anybody. Now, this is what we decided to do. He's just come out with this book, this phenomenal book, Failure is Not an Option, all right? And then you can see the subtitle there, DC Snipers Takedown, Discovery Building Suicide Bomber Hostage Rescue, and Surviving 2 Terminal Diseases. We decided that we're going to do this in 2 parts. And the first, because that's what, like, the book is two parts. The first part is all the SWAT stories, and then the second part is how he defeated these 2 terminal illnesses. We're going to flip that. So we're going to start with that. Okay, we're going to start with how he survived, not just survived, but how he's thriving. Wait till you see this guy. He's like yoked up. He's all shredded. He's 62 and he's ripped. So, yeah, we're going to do that first. And then when we do a part 2 down the road, at some point, we're going to get to hear all his stories about the mental toughness of being involved in these SWAT operations. But he's got a list of 7 disciplines to which he attributes his success, success in staying alive, not just staying alive, but then thriving. So he's going to take us through that stuff. All right. Former Commander Jeff Nyce is here waiting for us. Let's go find him, shall we? Where are you, sir? And here he is, Jeff Nyce. Hello, sir. How are you today, man?
Great to be here.
Well, I appreciate your making time, especially given, that, you're on chemo every day of your life. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate, yes.
Yeah, which means there are days where you're not feeling so great.
Oh, no doubt about it. You pick and choose kind of what you can do in a given day.
How are you doing today?
Great.
You look amazing.
Well, thanks for the gracious words.
Seriously, you look like fit as a fiddle. You look ripped up.
And
you exercise every day, don't you?
A lot to be said for exercise and being ill.
Well, being fit mentally and physically, you're going to tell us all about that stuff. But before we get started, your background is of interest to me. You and I have only spent a few minutes together, and that's typical for guests of the podcast that I don't already know. Is we only spend a little bit of time talking about the podcast and maybe what we'll discuss. We don't plan it all very much, but when we did visit, I was interested in what's behind you. So I thought maybe you could take us through. And by the way, just FYI, some people only listen to this, so they can't see what I'm seeing or what those of us who are watching the video version of this can see. But still, I'm interested because I think there's probably some good stories behind you.
Would you like me to stand up? Can I take you through this?
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be great if you're willing.
If I can. Behind me is kind of
look how in shape that guy is.
This is a tribute to my team. In other words, everything I've accomplished is not my accomplishments, but what we've accomplished as a team.
Yeah.
First, at the very top here is the shield, which is the emblem of our team. Then I've got a pic here of our team in front of our headquarters over in Rockville. As you look to the left here, when I retired, there's some achievements where the American flag was flown over my honor at the U.S. Capitol the day I retired.
That's amazing.
And at the bottom here, I have a couple letters from the President Obama and President Bush recognizing my achievements in service.
Oh my goodness.
My police.
Wow.
And if you look here to my right here, there are multiple awards that I had received, including the Medal of Valor. And there's an interesting magazine down here at the bottom, I think. It's from Time Life. And it says the most notorious crimes in American history. And it includes the assassinations of Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, and Lincoln. The reason I have this magazine is it also includes the snipers, Malvo and Muhammad. And in my book, the first chapter of the book is the takedown of DC snipers. I was part of the 6-man team that took them into custody. They had killed or shot 50 people in the DC region, ultimately tied to killing 10 people in our area, including 6 in my county, and were tied to 23 shootings across the country. But again, that's the first chapter of the book, Takedown of the DC Snipers. Yeah,
which, by the way, that stuff, here's the book, by the way, folks, right here, which is entitled Failure is Not an Option. We're going to talk plenty about that. The first part of the book is just unbelievable stories of missions, of SWAT missions. And your storytelling is phenomenal, by the way. I mean, either you have a memory like a steel trap, or you took a lot of good damn notes, or both.
Well, thank you. I mean, a lot of the big events always stick out in your mind.
Well, there's a lot of them. So, but what we've decided to do is we'll save those stories for round 2. Because what else? The rest of the book, of course, is about the fact that which starts around chapter 16, page 178. Actually starts a little bit before that. Actually does start before that. But is about your experience having been diagnosed with not one, but two terminal, I'm using air quotes for a reason, illnesses.
Yes.
Namely, correct me if I mispronounce them, please. Multiple myeloma, which is cancer.
Correct.
Which sometimes results in an additional illness, right? Which is, I think, is pronounced, I'm going to give this a whirl. I looked this up, but I can't pronounce it appropriately. Amyloidosis. No, I'm not saying it right.
It's all good. Cardiac amyloidosis is what I have.
Cardiac amyloidosis.
It's all
Amyloidosis. Okay. All right. Which affects what organs in your case affected your heart.
Correct.
Why don't you take us there? Let's start there. And what we're going to do, so we'll just give a little foreshadowing of what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about your diagnosis, but then your attitude and the 7 principles that you attribute to the fact that you are not just alive, but a thrive, we'll say.
And if I can, what I might do is I'll explain a little bit about the diseases and how the title of this book plays into survival.
Beautiful.
The one is a cancer. The other, cardiac amyloidosis, you get these deposits in your heart, protein deposits called amyloids. And what it causes, the walls of my heart become very thick, makes it very difficult to breathe and so forth. On occasion, you might notice I may still get out of breath.
Okay.
But that's no worries. That's just kind of the norm today.
Okay. So
I had these 2 terminal diseases I was diagnosed with in 2012. Now, if you take the title of my book, Failure is Not an Option, when I was in SWAT, there were 3 things I always expected of the men. I served as a operator, team leader, and commander. And when I was a commander, there's 3 things I always asked them. You never complain, you never quit, and the mission comes first. And as it relates
let's
to
slow
mission,
that. Can we just slow that? Are you cool with me every once in a while interrupting you to slow it
Sure,
down? Because that's like a screenshot moment. I
Absolutely.
suspect we're going to have a few of them, and there's one, okay, which I already wrote them down because I anticipated that because you make it abundantly clear in here and in the conversation that we first had. I took some notes. So never quit, never complain, and the mission comes first. You know, I could just run with that as a mental toughness coach. I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty much it.
what's very important though, is as it relates to the mission, failure is not an option.
Failure is not an option. Now, see, can we just stay with that for, maybe we'll stay with that for a long time because that's a big deal. Failure is not an option. Now, people have probably heard that before, heard that sentence, but that's not a sentence to you.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. Can you talk a little bit about that? The difference between that being a cliche or a way of operating?
Absolutely. Let me apply it to my terminal diseases, not so much SWAT. These are lessons learned in SWAT.
You're right.
In other words, when I had the disease, I applied these same expectations to myself. Never complain, never quit, and the mission comes first. And I made my mission survival. And failure is not a mission as it relates to survival, so I must survive.
Why never complain? Tell me about complaining, because, you know, that's one of the biggest things. You don't know this. There would be no way for you to know this, Jeff, about me. But I should have worn the shirt. I have a shirt that says complaining is stupid. So it's a big part of my work. All right. But I don't want to talk too much. I want to hear it from you. Why is that like one of these never quit, never complain, the mission comes first? Why is never complain in there?
It's very important because in life, if you look at things, very often things we complain about are very small in the spectrum of life. So we push them aside, simply don't complain, say that's nothing in the spectrum of life to complain about, and never quit and take that kind of attitude. It's the way to push forward through very minor obstacles from my perspective.
Yeah. So I am practicing. Tell me where you're at with this. I've been practicing for years eliminating complaining from my life, but I noticed that I still do. And I did today. I still do, about little shit. Like, I send out this thing every morning called the Daily Dose, and the service provider that I'm using for the platform, they're having some issues. And my promise is that whoever signs up, wherever you are in the world, you get it at 6 a.m. Well, they're starting to screw up, and they're starting to show up at 7 a.m. Some people get it at 10 a.m. I got one at 2 p.m. So it's like, I'm noticing that, and I'm going, damn it. Now there's a complaint, right? Coach me a little bit. Now, and this is why I'm bringing this up, because I want to get to the point. Look, I'm talking about a damn email service. Who gives a damn? You're talking about life-threatening diseases.
I think a good way to look at it is ultimately is that it's probably the norm for everybody to want to complain, but let's put our complaints in the spectrum of life and how that relates. So in other words, an email to complain about versus living or dying, those are two completely different spectrums from my perspective.
Right. Well, have you just always been that way? Like, I just don't complain, or did you practice that? Did you have some mentoring or coaching or some leadership on that, or would you say that's a trait of yours?
I just think it's something that's instilled in us on the SWAT side of things. If you want to be successful.
Interesting. Oh, very interesting. So you actually were trained on how to so that's a part of attitude.
Correct. It's a mindset. It's very easy to complain about so many things, but ultimately, in an tactical operation, you all have to go to the same page. You can't complain about things, and we're all focused on our mission.
So, what do you do instead of complaining? People. I don't know if you ever heard this, but I read somewhere recently, and I don't know how they ever measured this, but this is interesting. Scientists said that people, on average, complain once every 11 seconds.
Wow. Ouch.
Right? And in my opinion, as I've read my opinion, who cares about my damn opinion? What science shows us is that when I complain, I'm releasing chemicals that deactivate my intelligence, that make compromise all functioning, like intellectual functioning, problem solving, reaction time, coordination. All right.
And also, in terms of maintaining a positive attitude to push forward, it's very difficult to have a positive attitude to keep pushing forward when you complain, because I view that as a negative. So
I think it's impossible.
If you want to have a positive mindset, you need to have a belief in certain things and keep pushing forward in a positive way.
Now, tell me if I'm getting ahead of things here, right? Because I wanted this to be orderly. That order is one of your things, right? Is starting the day. Well, I want to get ahead. So there are 7 principles, right? Do you have a name for this?
I know we were going with that with the 7 principles in terms of things that will help you with life-threatening diseases.
Well, you identify 7 strategies or principles for saving your life from a life-threatening disease, right? Survival.
Yeah, I would kind of go back to, if you want a strong mindset about winning, which is what this is all about.
Yeah.
One thing I've also told our guys on the team is, if you look at the NFL, back in the day, they had a 16-game season. If they went 14-2, that was a great season. They'll make the playoffs. But for us, we do 200 raids and barricades a year, and our season's 200 games. I always tell the team, look, we have to win every game, all 200, every year, every season, because the price of losing is too great. So what you do is you use things to reaffirm this winning attitude that you will never lose, and keep pushing forward in that fashion.
So I do work with some very large, multi-billion-dollar international companies that sell a lot of expensive stuff. And these are like some of the world's biggest and at the moment most successful companies, right? And I work with the sales teams on mental toughness. And what you just reminded me of is something that to an untrained mind would sound unbelievably daunting. Because what happens in these people's worlds is they have to sell more stuff than they ever did They have a, the Q4, they crushed their record. They sold more, they created more revenue than they ever have before. And then they get a new quota like the next day. They have like 4 hours to celebrate. And then they are given a new quota for the next fiscal year. And it's like plus 20, plus 25% of what they did last year, which is a total record. Now they're like, what the hell? How am I going to do that? Now, but you're saying you can afford 0 losses. You have a 200 game season, which means you're probably going to have 200 events, right? Where people's lives are on the line.
You got to win every time.
And you can't lose any of them. Is that daunting? Is that scary? Is that intimidating? Is that distracting?
Not when you have a passion for it, not when you believe in the guys that are around you. And you made an interesting point. I'll show you another way to attack obstacles that are vast like this.
Yeah.
When I was first diagnosed, my treatment plan seemed very vast. In other words, I was going to have to go through 4 to 6 cycles of chemotherapy, then a stem cell transplant for 3 weeks at a hospital, and then chemotherapy thereafter to survive. If you look at this, it seems daunting.
Yeah.
So how do you attack that? You attack it like you do an obstacle course. When you do an obstacle course, you don't look at the whole obstacle course. What you do is you focus on that obstacle directly in front of you. And you attack that obstacle as aggressively and as hard as you can. And once you clear that obstacle, you regroup as a route to the next obstacle and attack that one as aggressively as hard as you can until you complete the whole obstacle course. Because if I look at what my initial treatment was, 4 to 6 cycles of chemotherapy, and 1 cycle would be 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and then 6 of those, 3 weeks in the hospital and chemotherapy the rest of my life. Now, that's daunting, as you say, looking at it in the entire spectrum, but attack each challenge one at a time until you clear your obstacle course. That's a way to I would tell your business friends to attack these challenges one at a time.
How does someone, I'm really committed to having people leave these episodes, these podcast episodes with real concrete, valuable takeaways. So I like to ask a lot of how questions. You mentioned, so you've got these 7 principles. The first one is, and this is specific to recovering or surviving from life-threatening diagnoses, right? And the first one, of course, is you give amazing credit to the medical staff that you've interacted with over the years. You're very, very gracious. And they are first on your list of 7, which is getting the best medical care. The second item, the second discipline or principle is you call patient responsibility. Now, in that description, you discuss developing a strong mindset and a true desire to do whatever is needed to survive. I'd like to unpack that a little bit with you if we could. Can we go there? Like how do you recommend, how do you develop the strong mindset? How do you recommend other people develop strong mindsets? Because you know what, Jeff, we could just say that's really the whole reason for this Tough Talks podcast to exist in the first damn place.
And maybe I can kind of take you through these principles in an order that would kind of give a little more detail, if you will.
Great.
And I'm going to go back to number 1, where we talk about our doctors and have the best of medical care. I was fortunate to have my oncologist, John Warmock, phenomenal. Badgers, who did my stem cell transplant, phenomenal. And Richard Childs, at the time, was a captain when I met him. He's now the upper rear admiral, assistant surgeon general of the United States. And he basically took the bull by the horn as it related to. Oh, absolutely. The guy is amazing. So I can tell you, I would have died first from the cardiac amyloidosis. But what he and his NIH team did was take the bull by the horn and make sure I survived. So number 1 is you have to have the best medical professionals that you can find. I've got the best in the world by far. Number 2 is patient responsibility. So what does that mean? You develop a strong mindset to push forward and do whatever it takes to get to the next level. In other words, whatever it takes, you will do. And as I take you through these next principles, you'll see how that mindset is reinforced.
Okay. Before we go there, though, there's already a potential massive conflict. So there are, there's a thing called attributed power, right? So for example, when you have an MD behind your name, by virtue of having an MD behind your name, you are, you command authority, and it's deserved most of the time. There's a phrase that I heard one time, and it came from a movie entitled, it's a documentary called Heal, Heal. And one of the experts in the movie, it's all about people who have survived, unusually, who have survived, who've healed themselves from terminal illnesses, and like how. And the phrase was, believe the diagnosis, challenge the prognosis. So you were given now I remember the piece where Jane, your wife, she wrote, I can't remember where exactly that occurs in here, but I'm good. Well, there it is. I found it. Yeah, she wrote a note and she was talking about how, how her reaction to when you were first diagnosed. And right. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I think kind of coming back to that is when you have a diagnosis, that is going to give a choice to make. You either wait to die or choose to live. I choose to.
That's huge. That's huge. I got to slow that down. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is just, you're so full of mic drops here.
And
you're given a diagnosis, and you just translated that so powerfully into, you've also just been given a choice to make.
Life without choices. And I believe every man has his own legacy. It matters not what happened to those before you, but what you choose to do. I believe in life, you get what you expect. And I told my doctors on day one, I would be the first to survive. And I meant that.
You didn't have any time, and this is because you're SWAT training, right? Your SWAT, is this accurate or not? You're what, 30 years? Your SWAT training had prepared you so that when you were given that information, which for most humans is totally devastating, your immediate response was, okay, well, I choose to live.
Exactly.
So you didn't have any time. You didn't go, oh my God, and you didn't. So you didn't even buy into it. You bought that you are sick.
I choose to live, and I believe once again in life you get what you expect. If you think you can survive, you can survive.
Jeff, that is really, really critical, because a lot of people, without this exploration that we're doing right now, okay, I think a lot of people would hear that and go, well, look, he's a former SWAT commander, for God's sake. He was involved in present at the Discovery thing and all these other, unbelievable. He's an outlier. He's not typical. He's not normal. But one of the things is you're prepared for this, and that's the key.
My message to you is that yes, I'm a SWAT guy, and that's how I have survived. But my message also is that I have lessons learned here that you don't have to be a SWAT person to survive. I mean, I have lessons learned here that will make everybody survive and develop that same mindset, regardless of whether you were SWAT or not.
Well, it was in the description of the Discovery event, the Discovery building, right? Event. At the end of it, you say, after the Discovery incident, I explained to people about that in the introduction, what that means. I think a lot of people know what that means anyway. I took away a critical lesson as a SWAT commander: the significance of training.
Without question.
Being prepared. Now, Jeff, one of the reasons that I'm so excited to have you as a guest, this is so great. One of the reasons that I even do mental toughness for a career is my vocation. One of the reasons I do this podcast is to share with people the fact that that is the value of training. And there's multiple forms of training. One of them is here.
And I want to play off what you just said, because it was huge. Preparation.
Yeah.
Preparation is the key to success at any event. It doesn't matter if you're studying for a test, an athletic event, running a business, or a SWAT operation. So what I did was give my diagnosis, and I prepared a plan for survival. And I can share that plan with you.
Yeah. Right. Okay. You see me struggling here, man. I got so many directions I want to go with you. This is so.
I'm just playing off you. You're the lead.
Okay. Roger that. What an honor. Okay. So let's go back to where I first tangented, which is, okay, so you get diagnosed and your immediate response is, okay, well, I choose to survive. So let's just make our plan here. And there's like zero time. You didn't go through the stages of grief. That's a huge point. You didn't have grief. You just went to, all right, we got a new mission.
That's it.
and failure's not an option. Let's get busy doing what it takes, baby. Because of the work that you've done on yourself, and I would say in this case, and you correct me if I'm wrong, predominantly on your mind, it's the mind training that permitted you to have that response ability. You had the ability to respond in that moment. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It was a mindset that's still forever.
I know this is like an impossible question. I know, because you're like, dude, 30 years. Roger that. Can you give me any examples though of how did you guys train? How did you train your mind in your SWAT experience?
Well, when you have a passion for something, which I had for SWAT, I mean, everything we ever did was about winning. And we, whether it be operationally, we compete a lot in different events, and we always tend to do very well in winning those events. So it was just reaffirmed over that 30-year period, if you will, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah. All right. So let's go. Okay. Sorry, did I cut you off?
I'll just say that a lot of it is reaffirmed by the people that I'm around. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not exceptional. I'm simply reflective of the guys that I work with for all this team.
Well, okay, I hear that. I can tell you're very humble, but you are exceptional, and maybe a lot of that is because of who you surrounded yourself with. You are certainly exceptional, and I won't buy for a second that you're not exceptional, unless we put it in the context that I'm simply demonstrating the exceptional possibilities that we all possess. I'm just manifesting them, right? Right? Like you're doing what it takes. Like, okay, so back to the attributed power. Like doctor gives diagnosis, terminal, you've got 2 months, 2 years, whatever the damn timeline is, the death sentence, so to speak. And then by virtue of that expertise attribution, and the lack of decades of powerful training, then they don't have the reaction that you had. They have a complete opposite reaction than what you had. They go, oh shit, I better get my affairs in order and prepare to die.
And having said that, I told you part of survival is preparation and plan. And if you look at those 7 things I talked about, that's kind of relative to that plan. If you like, I can kind of
yeah. Okay. I promise to shut up and let us go through these.
No. I'm just trying to reinforce the points you're making, which are very good points. How do we develop that mindset for somebody who has not been in SWAT? And I think we can develop that mindset.
Well, I hope so, because I'm 52 and it's a little late for me to go into a SWAT team.
It's all good.
All right. So yeah, but that is, joking aside, that's a really damn good point. Like it's never too late in life to train your mind, right? It's never too late in life to train your body. It's never too late in life to make any changes that have you experience, not just survive, a terminal diagnosis, but to thrive in life, period.
I agree.
Okay. So these 7,
everything ends,
Yes. So we already discussed the best medical care. We got into patient responsibility. And I love that you that's the terminology that you use, because it's about taking ownership.
And you make a great point, because you have the best doctors in the world, but it means nothing unless you make your best effort as well.
Right. Unless you own it. Now, did you have any conversations? I'm really, really fast. I think you can tell I'm pretty fascinated with like that moment when you were given the diagnosis. Did you have good rapport with your physicians already at that time, or were you just meeting them?
It's ironic. My oncologist, we had trained in the same gym, so I had recognized him at the gym.
Oh, so wow, right? Okay. Oh, I remember reading that somewhere. So, okay. So when he told you, how did he say it? What was the prognosis?
Well, he basically told me, that I had this cancer, and then was reaffirmed that I had the cardiac amyloidosis after I had a heart biopsy, which is kind of, the worst of everything. But the thing I've always appreciated about my doctor, and he and I have been very upfront, is he's very honest and straightforward. And I told him from the get-go, look, I don't want you to, be all comforting. I want to know the truth. Because here's the bottom line. The truth is, if I know what the truth is, then I know how to plan my life thereafter based on the truth. And he's always been very good about it. He understands that I want to know the truth. Don't,
Did he give you any of his truth on what your prognosis was to survive?
yeah, initially it was pretty short.
Like how short?
Less than 2 years. And then when I had the amyloidosis, less than a year.
So there was a point in time where you were told by authorities you have less than a year to live.
Correct.
Did you buy that?
No.
That's what's amazing. You never bought into that.
Nope.
But you didn't have any proof to counter it. Because you didn't know anything about this stuff. Well, for what? Well, you're not a doctor. Why do you know these things?
I have no medical plan, but what I could do is make an effort. And again, part of that effort was developing a plan on how I would survive those 7 factors we're talking about.
Okay, so that's factor number 2 is patient responsibility, taking ownership, right? In my language, not yours, is respect the diagnosis, maybe create your own prognosis. That's actually a new version of it based on you, because that's what you did. That's what you did.
Well, thank you for the gracious words. I like that.
That's cool. All right, number 3, positive note and sense of order. I love this. Take it away.
This is huge. This is huge.
Yeah.
What happened is about 6 weeks into my treatment, you get what's called chemo brain. You're in this fog from the chemo.
Yeah.
And everything's in chaos. So what I did is I woke up one morning and I looked at my room and my whole life was chaos. My bed was not made, clothes all over the place. So what I did is back in 2012, I made my bed. And what I found is that by making my bed, it led to other positive achievements. I then cleaned up my room and everything thereafter. That's kind of an interesting lesson learned because I decided that since that was making good things happen thereafter, I start my day with a positive sense of order, making the bed. And interesting because in 2014, 2 years thereafter, a Navy SEAL, Admiral McCraven, was giving a speech, a commencement speech at his alma mater, Texas University. And he says, you want to start your day on a positive note, make your bed.
Yeah, I
lead
saw
to many
that
positive achievements. And I have to tell you, the man was spot on. He's obviously been doing it all his life, I imagine, as a kid. But for me, I didn't learn in 2012, but it was a huge lesson in terms of starting the day on a positive note.
You know, it's funny because I wrote that actually inspired me. That I saw that the video of that speech, which was unbelievably amazing, and it inspired me to do an additional blog post, which was I took it metaphorically from you're being very literal, and we'll stay with it. Making your bed. I started talking about making your head in the morning, right? But making your bed helps you make your head.
Without question, it's a good way of putting it.
Right? That's neat.
Question, I like that.
Yeah, well, this is how you finish it. You said this one completed task, making your bed, will lead to many completed tasks over the course of the day, and you couldn't agree more. Okay, number 4, exercise. Can't really tell if you exercise or not. What are you, 62? You look like freaking Superman over there. What the hell's going on?
Just been instilled in me since a young age, but exercise is huge, and you make a great point. 2 things I do every day has to be make the bed and exercise. What I found early on is that with the chemo, when I would wake up, I was in this fog, I felt nauseous, and I had a headache. And what I found is that if I could exercise at any level for 30 minutes, even walking at an incredibly slow pace, all of a sudden that nauseous feeling would go away. The headache would go away. I would somewhat come out of the fog. Now I've speculated, could be or could not be, but when you exercise, endorphins are released. So I've always wondered, is it because of the happiness from endorphins, that peace of mind it brings? So 2 things I will do every day, make my bed and exercise in that order.
Just for fun, and I know that we'll get more into this when we go back, when we do round 2, and we talk about the SWAT stories, but some of the stuff I just got to ask you about, like the competitions, the physical training. Dude, 1,000 sit-ups? Are you kidding me?
Well, I was going through the police academy. I knew I was not going to win the academic award. That was clear. So I decided I want to try to win the PT award, physical training award.
Yeah.
And 2 events were push-ups and sit-ups. So every Saturday I would go to the gym, I'd max out on push-ups. I'd max out on sips, doing 1,000 sips, on a Saturday just to.
1,000 sips. How many sets would that be about?
No, it was all in one set.
Wait, I don't know that you made that abundantly clear. Stop it.
Yes, I would go
1,000 sit-ups without a break?
Correct. I would do 1,000 sips on a Saturday. Now, I'd go at a very slow pace. I'd average 40 sit-ups a minute.
A minute.
I mean,
It took 25 minutes.
Yeah, so take 25 minutes.
Now, just to let people know, I'm not Rain Man over here. You wrote that in the book. That's how I knew the math.
Okay.
Okay, and then what was the push-ups? Oh yeah, but so you got to I don't want to ruin the story. So you got to the competition, but you had prepared for a different anticipated competition.
Correct. The day
you were
before,
prepared for a marathon.
No doubt. And then the day of the PT test, they tell me it's as many steps you can do in 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my gosh,
5 minutes.
So now I had to change my strategy. So up to 60 a minute. It was difficult, but I pulled it off. And then
doing one sit up a second.
Yeah, for 5 minutes.
It's so ripped. My goodness. And then what was the push-ups one?
I did 232 consecutive push-ups.
232 consecutive push-ups. That doesn't even compute in my puny little brain.
Well,
I think
every Saturday. So
did you won that competition, didn't you?
Correct. I won the PT award.
Of course you did. All right, let's go back. We're talking about exercise. So one of the two things you do every day, you make the bed and you exercise. No exceptions. No exceptions. Now let's talk about exercise, because another thing. All right, look, for people that are looking at you, you are you're again on a normal curve. You are an outlier as far as fitness goes. I mean, just look at you. So, this book is so cool because you're so meticulous. You have so many charts and diagrams where you outline nutrition, exercise, abbreviations, all kinds of stuff, like maps of the buildings where the events were occurring. So let's talk about people might be intimidated by you. Okay. Again, just looking at you, even they'll go, oh, well, I'm not that.
And you make a great point. My message to you is for everybody to exercise at whatever level they can exercise at and feel comfortable with.
Yes.
Because there's a benefit to it. And I will give you an example is that, when I was prime time, I used to run, fast and hard. But when I became ill, I could no longer run. The only thing I could do is walk at an incredibly slow pace. But what I found is there's a great benefit to walking. So that was a lesson learned to me, is that there's a great benefit to exercise at all levels, whether it be at the high level or the low level. So pick and choose what you can do at whatever level you can do.
Yeah. So when you say high level or low level, you mean like of intensity, level of intensity, right? Not of value, because it could be, right? Because a high intensity workout could be very detrimental, dangerous to a lot of people, right? So just any exercise every day. And how much exercise do you do a day?
I walk every day and I lift every day.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Really?
Try to do something every day. And my message too is you will feel good about it, because once the endorphins are released, it gives you that natural high, so to speak, and it makes you kind of want to do it again.
You talk a little bit about it where you say, if I can sustain exercise for 30 minutes, my head clears and the nausea from chemo goes away.
That's very true.
Is that always true?
It is so much I cannot tell you. That's why I do it every day, is I realize that if I can get through that, I somewhat come out of this fog that I'm in also as well.
That's a really interesting point, Jeff, because it's like, I imagine, since I have not had that experience, I do not know at all what it is like to be on chemotherapy. So I cannot relate in that regard, but I can imagine that you're not feeling a whole ton of motivation afterwards. So,
good point.
Okay. So there's another mental point, which is you got to suck it up. Like to even go do like I bet to most people who are getting chemo, even the notion of 30 minutes of exercise, nonetheless, daily is like, psh, yeah, no.
And you make a great point. My message would be, okay, let's not start with 30, let's start with 5 minutes. Then we go to 6, and we go to 7. To do it in an increment where at some level you will make your final goal, the obstacle course, 30 minutes. But you start with the additional challenge of 5 minutes and take it from there.
What kind of advice would you give someone without any kind of softening of it or apology to, like, say you're going to go talk to some people at a hospital who are getting treated for exactly what you had, and you're emphasizing the importance of exercise, and they're saying, but I feel so exhausted and nauseous. How am I supposed to exercise? What kind of advice do you give them to say, do it anyway?
I mean, take it on the smallest end. So in other words, if you're in your bed, tell me what you're willing to do. Okay, I'm willing to go up and go to the bathroom. That takes me 2 minutes to get there. Okay, let's go out and walk for 2 minutes. Next day, it's a walk for 3 minutes. Let's just build from there. And what you will find is like anything, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. So while you may not have the confidence early on, you will find that the more you do it, the better you will get, like at anything someone does.
Well, and even if it seems obvious to you, Jeff, what's the why, right? Because there's like, when someone is clear on the why. Oh, there's actually there's a book, Viktor Frankl's book. Wow, Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl's a guy that survived the concentration camps in Nazi Germany,
amazing.
and he wrote a book about it. And one of the ways of summarizing his book, Man's Search for Meaning, is a person with a why, W-H-Y, can deal with any how, H-O-W. Right. So here we are talking about, well, people who are getting chemotherapy treatment and feel just exhausted and nauseous and like uber low motivation. And we're suggesting, well, there are great benefits in exercise. Well, give me a why. Why would I do that? Even if it sounds absurdly obvious.
Why? Because ultimately, over the course of the day, you're going to feel much better. Do you want to wake up the same way every day, feeling this bad and this low? Or do you want to do something to take yourself to a different level? And that's what exercise does. It will take you to a different level throughout the day.
It's to get rid of the suffering, get rid of the pain and discomfort. Number 5, nutritional strategy.
And this is great. When I was diagnosed in
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Can you hold that thought?
Sure.
I just realized I skipped something that I totally wanted. In fact, I put it in my notes. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries.
It's a terrible habit for a podcast host to have. My bad. But I feel like this is something that I wanted to talk with you about. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, listening factor. Wow.
Yeah. That caught my attention big time. How do you say the guy's name?
Ulysses, Rob Ulysses.
Rob Ulysses. So, okay, tell us about him. Why is that in the book?
Rob Ulysses is a former Navy SEAL who came to our team. Yeah. When he came to SWAT, he brought so much positive change. I've always had great admiration for our elite military teams. So everything I ever did with him was a competition. I never told him that, but I was always trying to prove that I was his equal. I was never his equal in anything we did. The guy is absolutely amazing. So sometimes we'd be at the gym, whatever it may be, I'd always compete and try to show I was his equal. But the guy brought so much change to the team. It's absolutely amazing.
So the Ulysses factor.
Oh, wow.
So you and he had, okay, you want to tell?
Sure. We're in the gym and we're squatting and squatting for reps, how many reps we get in one set. Now, I've always been pretty good at endurance. My previous record had been 45. Because Ulysses was there, I set a mindset, I'm going to do 50. So I make my 50th rep. As I'm about to rack the weight, he goes, "What are you doing? You have one more rep." And I was cursing him in my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh. But because Ulysses was calling me out, I had to do one more rep. So I did rep 51, racked the weight, and then collapsed the floor for about 2 or 3 minutes. And I caught the Ulysses factor because even today when I work out, I think back that moment and it makes me do one more rep.
One more rep. One more. You know what? I'm so fascinated with the whole I don't know what the term is, but I read it in one of these Navy SEAL books. Like, it's like when you think, like, say you're doing push-ups or something, and you think you're out of juice. When your body starts telling you you're out of juice, then that's when you tell yourself, all right, well, we're almost halfway done.
Yeah, amazing.
Right. And the notion there is that we got way more in us than we think we do. And I have a personal story about that, about mountain biking in a dangerous place in Moab, Utah, on the Slick Rock Trail. When I was, I went up this hill and I didn't think I could finish it. And then I was like, okay, I got to lay the bike down. Then I looked backwards and there was a cliff behind me that I hadn't noticed. And then, oh, wow, suddenly I guess I can, those stories, right? And then cool research on how, like, weightlifters, like Olympic caliber weightlifters, are deceived. So these researchers make weight, the plates, the 45s, but they're like 50, or probably not that much more, but they're more. These guys can tell tiny little differences in weight. So it's probably like 46.5 pounds instead of 45, which is a big deal when you're setting Olympic records.
Oh, no doubt.
So they're doing these things and they're putting up weight but they don't know. They've been deceived. So they think, they're convinced in this. They expect that they'll, of course, be able to do this many reps because they work out with it. But they're wrong. They're throwing up more weight than they ever have, but they don't know it.
I like it.
They're expecting. So there's tons of research like that, which is all about this that you keep talking about, which I love so much. In life, you get what you expect. We are going to elaborate on that when we get to it, for sure. We will not hang up without talking about that, because I think that's like everything, right? What we expect. One more rep. There's more in the tank than we think. I'm going to call that the listening factor from now on.
No doubt.
All right. Now, I cut you off earlier. Nutritional strategy.
No, I'm glad you came back to your listening factor. That's huge.
Yeah.
In terms of the impact it's had on me and the team. So nutritional strategy. When I was diagnosed in August of 2012, early August, my mom also had cancer, and she died that same month, late August. And what I didn't realize is I had learned a lot of lessons in my mom's struggle with cancer. Mm. And what I saw was that when there were gaps in treatment, her health deteriorated big time. So I decided for myself I would never have a gap in treatment. Now, gaps in treatment can occur for two reasons. Sometimes your labs are not up to par, be unsafe to administer the treatment, or sometimes people can't tolerate the treatment. Now, it's not uncommon with chemotherapy to have your labs drop off. So I decided when my labs dropped off, I would research and find how I could improve my labs through nutrition. So I'll share with you those lessons if I can. In particular, my platelets dropped. I found that omega-3s increase your platelets. For 2 weeks, I ate nothing but salmon, and my platelets were back to normal.
You only ate salmon for only?
For dinner.
Yeah, okay, got it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then creatinine levels, that's related to kidney function. And what I found is if I drank lots of water and ate berries, especially raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, 2 weeks later, my creatinine levels were back to normal.
Where did you learn these things?
I went online to see how to improve them.
You just see that's all right. That's a slow down moment.
And this has come back to
that's the responsibility, patient responsibility.
Exactly, right there. Good point. Number 2, patient responsibility.
You're taking You're not waiting for the world to tell you what to do.
Without question. And number 3, alkaline phosphate, ALT, and AST, all related to liver function, were high. And what I found is that by drinking water and lemon juice, they all came back to normal within 2 weeks. And here's a good one related to water and lemon juice.
Yeah.
It also makes your glucose levels even, which is good for fat loss. You get a double bonus.
When you say, okay, I'm totally getting ahead of ourselves, but I can't help it.
It's okay.
It's okay. Thank you for saying it's okay. Thank you for that. So that's very validating. We may or may not get to it, but you're big time into intermittent fasting, and that's a huge thing. We probably should get to it. Now, when you do the water and lemon juice, do you use an actual fresh lemon and squeeze it into the water?
That's a great question. What I have found is I can take the concentrate. I can just take the water with the concentrate that you shoot out of that little container.
Yeah.
And if I do that, it works all the time. And the AST, ALT, and alkaline phosphate are back to normal.
So there are healthy brands of lemon juice that don't have nastiness in them, and you can just squirt the juice into your, and that counts.
Correct.
Does
Well,
that interrupt? Does that screw up the intermittent fasting?
That's a good question when we talk about that. I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute here. Can I throw in one other thing related to nutrition?
You have the calm.
Well, I guess this is important for, because these are things people can do. As we get older and exercise, I'm sure you experience it, we all suffer from inflammation.
Yeah.
Inflammation can lead to many diseases. And it's worse when you have cancer. So you want to find out how to reduce inflammation. The spice turmeric, when mixed with pepper, will help reduce inflammation. Pepper for absorption. Garlic, onion, scallions, all reduce inflammation. So my message is incorporate all these things into your diet daily to have the best that you can in terms of surviving these diseases, patient responsibility.
You know, I have a former guest who, if by chance, Laura, you're listening to this, I hired her. She was my health coach, which included but was not limited to nutrition. Just a couple hours ago, I took a curcumin, whatever it is, it's turmeric and pepper pill. I eat those every day, and I have water with lemon juice in it every day because of her guidance. So when I was reading this in the book, I thought, oh, this is really good. I feel like I'm doing some healthy things. These are so simple.
And once again, the things you can do to help yourself, self-advocate.
So there's so many great points here. Is that self-advocating, patient responsibility, doing your own research, but it always comes back to, no matter how many tangents you and I go off on, it's always going to come back to your expectation.
Without question.
Because if you expect to die, you're not doing any damn research.
There's no doubt.
Right? You're just tuning out. Beautiful, beautiful. Nutrition. So by the way, folks who are listening and watching, Jeff does a phenomenal, I highly recommend. Look, I've had this book for only a few days and I've already marked it up all over the place. He's got, you know, all the nutritional suggestions and exercise, you know, outlined. Let's go to number 6 of 7 of the thriving disciplines. I'm calling them that. Support of family and friends.
And without question, when you're hit hard, support of family and friends is huge. Probably the biggest single act that occurred is I had a stroke in 2015 from the chemo I was on. If you go to page 166, Brian Dillman gave me a copy of the book Unbroken, Laura Hillenbrand, and he wrote in there a message. I can't tell you how powerful that message is if you choose to share it.
Wait a minute.
It's a great highlight.
On 160. Oh, okay. I went to 167. Okay. Should I read it?
He gave me Unbroken, and you can kind of clarify who Louis Zamperini is, but what he wrote in there is absolutely amazing to me.
Shall I read it?
Sure, I'd love for you to.
Jeff, I thought it was only appropriate that I give a true warrior a book to read about another warrior. You are the strongest individual I have ever known, both physically and mentally. This book reminds me of you. You are my real life Louis. This stroke is nothing more than another one of the many obstacles that have been put in your path that you have defeated. Keep your chin up, continue to fight, and persevere like you always do. I love you, my brother. God bless. Brian.
And I guess my message from you is this: no matter what, we'll always get knocked down, we'll always get back up. But it's a lot easier to get back up your feet when someone's picking you up, as Brian did right there.
So Brian, the book he was referring to was Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand.
Correct.
And she was talking about a guy named, I don't know if it's Louis or Louis Zamperini.
Correct. An Olympic athlete who was shot down in the Pacific during World War II.
Survived a month and a half adrift in the ocean.
Yep.
And then he was a prisoner of war. Wow, I might check that book out. Should I get that book? You think?
Without question. And my message is that family and friends have no idea what it means when you're really struggling to push on to that next phase. Just those kind acts and words can really help big time.
It's incredible that you knew that was on page 166.
Only because of what he had done for me. It's amazing. He was my counterpart in SWAT. He was the other SWAT sergeant, one of my best
Beautiful.
friends.
And finally, the seventh of the seven thriving disciplines, spiritual belief.
And
Which
I've
I
never
gotta
been,
say, I think some people might be surprised at, from the SWAT commander. I don't know if that's.
I've never been super religious. I rarely go to church, but I've always believed in the Lord Jesus Christ. I believe in divine intervention, and
Okay.
I'm here because of His divine intervention. I guess from my perspective, is that it's good to believe in a higher power and to pray to that higher power. And for me, that higher power is always delivered for me. So it's to me, that's the most important of the seven.
Let's talk a little bit about intermittent fasting, because you researched that also on your own, yes?
And that's a great point. And I had gone 5 years on chemo, but still was shy of reaching the remission phase. I mean, I had a stem cell transplant, and they took me from the death's doorstep to just shy of remission, but I never reached it. In 2017, I felt like I was getting real numb to the world, and that the chemo fog was destroying me. So I met with my doctor, and we figured out ways to reduce the chemotherapy I was taking. So we went from going on 3 weeks on and 1 week off to 2 weeks on and 1 week off. So that would reduce the frequency and the amount of chemo I received over the course of a year. But I also had studied fasting, because I saw that there was online, I looked at about 20 studies from Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, NIH, and others.
Yeah.
And there was research that showed that fasting could slow the spread of existing cancer, prevent cancer, and help take you out of this chemo fog you were in. It was also supposed to help with the radiation chemo treatment. So I thought, I need to do something to try to detox myself. So what I did is experimented. Initially, I was fasting 3 days a week for 16 hours. All
So
my
that
food
means you don't eat anything between what? Well, I
for
guess
8 hours period.
you eat everything between the 8 hours in an 8 hour period.
And you made a great point earlier about the lemon juice and water. When it comes to fasting, I don't add anything. No lemon juice to the water. I don't take any of my meds, nothing. The only thing I take in that 8 hour period is water.
No, the only thing that you take in the 16-hour period, right?
I'm talking about the.
So you're intermittent fasting. So what would, let me break this down. So you would start like, we'll give me an example. Like, so 8 hour period, like, so like 8 to 4 p.m. you would eat.
Correct.
Or 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You would eat nothing from 6 p.m., we'll say, to the following morning at 10, we'll say, for 16 hours, right?
And thank you for correcting me. You're right. It's sort of the fasting.
Well, I've been thinking this through because I'm fascinated by it.
Is that I would not take any meds, or I wouldn't do anything that would infect my digestive system and affect the fasting. It's nothing but water, black coffee, or black tea with nothing in it.
Oh, okay. So water, plain water, no lemon.
Correct.
Because the lemon ends it, the fasting.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting.
So, and after having experimented, I did a whole bunch of things. Fasted 36 and 48 hours just to kind of figure out what would work best. Ultimately, I found that fasting 12 to 14 hours for me is what worked best. It was tolerable. And this allowed me to have the energy to still work out and train. I did this for 3 months straight, 14 hours every day. And for the first time in my life, that pushed me over the finish line. I reached remission.
So you're doing, wow. Okay. Wow. Right. Wow. Like that's the variable. That's the variable?
That was the one that the doctors were phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. They're phenomenal. But I was shy of remission. And I feel like the fasting took me over that finish line.
Yeah, but you were teaching the doctors. You were teaching the doctors about intermittent fasting. You were telling me, like, one of those guys, like, teaching me, like, maybe I'll do that.
I shared my results with my oncologists, Badgers, and Admiral Childs. And they all were impressed and said there is evidence out there that the fasting can help. So I guess my message is that fasting can be a good health benefit.
Yeah.
And again, this comes back to patient responsibility.
You were teaching your own doctors.
Well, I don't want to take it so far that I'm teaching though. This is a lesson learned from me in terms of getting over the edge. So
I'm just saying what I read in your book. Okay, just saying.
I hear you.
All right.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, thanks for the kind words. I just like to,
No, but that's a
because I wouldn't be
beautiful
alive.
thing. In addition to being complimentary to you, it's actually very powerful because by taking damn responsibility, you went out, you made the decision. Comes back to your expectation. I decide I live. Failure is not an option. Let's go do what it takes. Part of doing what it takes is educating yourself. And you spread the wealth. You're sharing what's working. And your doctor are going, well, isn't that great? Yay to that. Let's take that seriously. And you're expanding their ability. Now you, by taking patient responsibility, are enhancing their ability to do what they do amazing, even maybe more amazingly. And that's spectacular.
And I want to share with you that I now fasted for 3 years every day, 12 to 14 hours. And for 3 years straight, I've been in remission.
So what time, what is your, like right now, your timetable when you stop eating every day?
Typically, I stop somewhere between 6 and 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So at night. So all I have to do is make it till 6 or 7 the next morning to make it 12 hours. But usually it goes a little further to the 13 or 14 hour time span. But I don't find
you do your exercise?
First thing in the morning.
So you, it doesn't matter that you don't have any nutrients. You work out anyway.
That's a great question. Usually I get up at 7 o'clock, and at 7 I go straight to the bagel shop and I get a turkey sandwich. And I have a turkey sandwich, and then I work out thereafter.
So wait, you're out of the intermittent phase though, right?
Yeah, at 0700 is my 12-hour time limit. And by the time I get my sandwich and I'm back, it's usually about
So you get a little
8 o'clock.
nourishment. At the end of the intermittent phase, you go get some nourishment, you go work out.
Absolutely.
All right. This is so cool. Okay, so let's wrap it up with what I think is perhaps, it's hard to finish that sentence even. I was going to say the most important takeaway, which there's no way I could ever prove that. There's so many great takeaways. One of them
I'll share the important way.
What's that?
Is survive. An important takeaway is survive as long as you can. Because if you look at through novel drugs and clinical trials, from when I started with cancer, survival rate was 3 to 4 years. By surviving, survival rate is now at the 5-year mark, 5 years, and 10% survive 10 years or more. When I started for the amyloidosis, survival rate was less than 8 months undiagnosed, and I survived 2 years. Now the survival rate at 10 years is 4.7%, and I've survived 10 and a half years. But my point is, if you survive, the medical pressure will help you get along even further.
Okay, so it's a perfect segue into the last point that I wanted to re-articulate it, because we've hit on it a couple times, which is your quote, which is, in life, you get what you expect. In life, we get what we expect. How would you elaborate upon that? If someone says, okay, what do you really mean by that, Jeff?
I think if you expect to do well at things, you will do well at things. I also think it's important to associate with people who are positive and move in a forward direction. I've always believed that you're only as good as the people you associate with.
I couldn't agree with that more, but I have this internal debate with myself all the time. Like, if I go up on my roof and I tell myself I expect to fly.
I hear you.
Yeah, you think I'm going to pull that off ever?
I hear you.
I don't know. I can't say no. I can't say it's impossible. Like, I'm not in a position to say that's impossible. Like, people do levitation and weird shit. I'm not going to do that.
But I guess
I can't convince
I would ask
myself.
you though, would you truly expect you could fly from your roof?
That's what I was just going to
say.
Exactly.
So I mean, I guess your expectations, they have to be expectations that can be done, because I expect you to survive.
Well, I don't know, though. You see, that's the thing, is that this is an interesting thing, right? It's like you defied the odds, man. You defied medical odds. So, like, there would be a lot of reason. In fact, there's a hell of a lot more supportive evidence, okay, that you should be dead.
Oh, no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
Okay, so you still somehow managed to get yourself, and we'll clear up the mystery behind that. The somehow is 30 years of training your mind in SWAT, not anticipating that you were going to apply it to your survival from,
I would say this,
disease.
is that surviving the odds, I've always, or, when you have things really stacked against you, instead of seeing that as something negative, I see that as an opportunity, an expectation. I see as the bigger the odds, the bigger the opportunity to come through and prove something that was wrong or different in your favor.
Yeah, so like talking about the sales folks, it's like, all right, what your options are. Like you've just been given a new quota, you're still choosing to keep this job, so you're in the job, you're not quitting and going doing something else. So what's your choice? Choice is prepare to fail, decide that you will
Decide you're gonna
thrive,
win.
and get busy doing what it takes, even when you don't know how. And that's one of the things I love most about your story is you got all in. That's my language. I use all in language. Like that's all in. You are infinitely committed. That's all that means. You're infinitely committed. And you got that committed before you had the specifics to the answer. How are you going to defeat this terminal ×2 set of conditions? You didn't know how yet. You decided that you would prior to having full clarity on the how. That, my friend, is powerful. That is the definition of mental toughness. And I thank you for doing that and choosing to thrive, not just to survive, but to thrive, because I get to share you with my audience.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to let me share these lessons I have, because I think it's beneficial to a lot of people, particularly those suffering from life-threatening diseases.
Amen to that. Or not even, of course, yeah. People who are being diagnosed, or I have been recently diagnosed with it, I think that their ears are truly perking when they listen to all this, but you don't have to be dealing with a life-threatening diagnosis for this to be of value. This applies to any decision that you want, anything that you want, right, in your life. Get committed.
And I would say one last thing.
Yeah.
Never complain, never quit, and failure is not an option. And I believe that conquering this cancer and amyloidosis will be my finest hour.
Amen to that. Thank you for your inspiration. Jeff Nyce, folks, his book Failure is Not an Option, subtitle The DC Sniper's Takedown, Discovery Building Suicide Bomber Hostage Rescue, and Surviving 2 Terminal Illnesses, available on Amazon. I can't wait for round 2, my friend. Thank you so much for gracing us with your wisdom, your courage, and your practical knowledge.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was great.
We'll I'll look forward to session number 2.
I'll do that.
So gracious, right? The guy, I mean, how many times during the interview did he say, "Oh, that's a great point. It's a great point. You're bringing a great point." He's so nice. Jeff Nyce. So yeah, wow. I can't recommend. This book is fascinating on 2 levels, right? On 2 levels. The beginning are all these incredible stories. The DC Snipers, that's where it opens, with the DC Snipers. I mean, these are amazing stories. The guy's a SWAT commander. He's telling these stories. Incredible detail. The dude loves telling the stories. And then what we talked about today in episode 1 of our Tough Talks interview series with former Commander Jeff Nyce was dealing with his terminal diagnoses. I should say diagnoses, E-S, not I-S. Yeah, and how powerful, I mean, he hit on some of what I consider to be the most critical and fundamental defining elements of mental toughness, which all starts with your expectations. What are your beliefs? Right? We're always examining our beliefs in mental toughness training. Our beliefs govern how our lives unfold, right? So what we're expecting, I love that he uses that language. It's just couldn't resonate more with me. We create what we expect. So what are we expecting? Good stuff. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. As always, until next time, create miracles.